Hi, I'm Diane Sweeney, and I'm one of the authors of The Essential Guide for Student-Centered Coaching. And I wanted to welcome you to our first session together. Our topic today is why student-centered coaching matters. What's the bigger picture for student-centered coaching, and what are the guiding principles and practices that we really try to hold to in this coaching model? So first, let's think about the guiding principles for this work. We really have 4 operating principles that are really almost beliefs more than anything. But the first one is, I think, sort of the most, commonly understood, commonly known belief. And it's that we really don't see coaching as being about fixing teachers. And what we mean by that is that coaching can't be about targeting certain teachers who are struggling and making sure that we do something that feels kind of top down to help them improve where they're not necessarily showing the desired results that we're looking for. So oftentimes this shows up with us thinking about who needs coaching. That word needs is what's key here. And instead, we can really think about coaching as being for all kids, for all teachers, for a whole entire school community. While I recognize there's some logistics to that, the key here is that we don't take a deficit approach to who needs coaching, but rather we think about coaching as a really healthy way that we just function within a school community. And a way that we can move away from that notion of fixing teachers is that we can think about coaching as being a partnership that's focused on student learning. And by that, what we mean is that we coach around goals for kids. The process is very standards-based and academically focused. And it's truly about moving kids along and having a thinking partner to help you do just that. And so that really is very different than looking at what teachers are doing wrong and trying to fix that. And we do really move teachers, honestly. And this is the truth of the matter, is we can impact student learning and how high quality instruction is all at the same time. It's just that our entry point is really focusing on the student learning first and the instruction as our way to get there. The third big principle for us is that coaching has to be a continuous process. For us, we use coaching cycles as our system for that. And it's just silly for us to think that we can do one-shot coaching sessions or pop-ins and think that that's going to make the desired impact. It won't lead to the transfer we're hoping for, and it probably won't lead to the growth of students because it's not a deep enough dive. So we see coaching as being continuous, not going all the time, not going on forever, but being a process that has a series of connected sessions that are all very much goal related. And then the fourth is the bigger picture. It's the systems that surround coaching, and we see this as an ecosystem. We view school improvement processes as wrapping around coaching so that there's a robust system where everything is in balance, and that the coach is a part of a bigger plan for supporting teachers. Because we can't just hope we hire a coach and everything's going to work out. There has to be far more intentionality than that. We'll be looking at that on the session when we focus on school culture. It would be nice just to spend a few minutes aligning to the visible learning research, because our work in visible learning, as you read in chapter 1, really does dovetail quite nicely. And one of the big ones for us is teacher clarity. At a 0.76, that's almost 2 years growth in 1 year's time, as you read in chapter 1. And that means that as coaches, we really have to take our role as helping teachers understand exactly what the learning is, and then taking that learning to such a clear level that even the students can self-regulate, which is the last effect size that I've listed here. If the students can self-regulate, then teacher clarity is there. It's in place. because the kids can say, hey, I know exactly what I'm here to learn. I know the work I'm here to do. I know what steps I need to take to get to the bigger picture. That would be coming out of learning targets and a success criteria. And so as coaches, we can really push on teacher clarity through co-planning and co-teaching, unpacking the standards with teachers. All of that work really gets at that important practice. And also, it's important to mention that this is oftentimes what's missing in lessons. So teachers will find things on the internet as a great idea for a lesson. They may be very activity focused or super bound by the resource and not necessarily taking that step to think more about what do the kids really need to know and do here, not just the activity they're going to participate in. So this is a fun one to go after. Teacher expectations is really getting at the idea that as coaches, we can really level up expectations or make sure expectations are appropriate, because we are always standards based. So we're always talking with teachers about, okay, what does the standard say kids have to know and do? Let's unpack that into learning targets. Let's make sure we know exactly what's appropriate for our grade level. And this can look like progressions or vertical work, or even just within a unit. What's the teacher, what really does the standard demand? And having a thinking partner or a coach help you with that can be super important. Teacher evaluation and reflection gets at the idea that the teacher evaluation and reflection piece, Hattie references the use of data here. So we really look at formative data, formative assessments. So we want to get teachers reflecting, most certainly, but we don't want them to be just reflecting on how a lesson went. We want them reflecting on how the kids do. So we always use student evidence to drive those reflective conversations. So you noticed probably, I'm sure you had some time to reflect on this bullseye graphic in chapter 1 as well. This is really, I guess, probably one of the easiest ways that we came up with to frame out how student-centered coaching sits in relation to other coaching approaches. These aren't necessarily models, but they're just ways coaching tends to look out in schools. And it's really interesting to think about how this connects to teacher perception. So when we think about how teachers perceive coaching, it's very likely going to be driven by whatever methods or approaches the coach in the school is taking. And sometimes this is created by no model for coaches. They have a coaching person, somebody got hired to be a coach, but they don't necessarily have even a framework to operate from. And when that's the case, you oftentimes end up out in that outer ring, which is that relationship-driven coaching. And that's pretty far away from the center point, which is the student learning. So if we think about playing darts, it's okay to hit that once in a while. But if a coach is constantly serving as a resource provider, as a friendly mentor, as somebody who's really just kind of helping out, taking small groups, creating schedules or managing data, they're probably not going to get the most out of the coaching. Teacher-centered coaching, as you read, is also very, very common. These two outer rings are the most common approaches that we see to coaching. Teacher-centered coaching is oftentimes when coaching is related or attached to something that is being implemented, like, let's say, a new series of units of study, or a new math curriculum, or Danielson practices, or some technology integration initiative that's happening in a district. And the thing about teacher-centered coaching, like you'll notice the relationship slice, it runs through all coaching, because relationships are going to be super important no matter what kind of coaching approach you're taking, and trust for sure is going to be important. But teacher-centered coaching is going to be the hardest place to build a trusting relationship, because the coach is sort of taking on an authority role simply because they're monitoring how the teacher is doing. Is this teacher teaching 12-minute mini lessons? Is this teacher using the materials? Is this teacher following the, the progression we want to see the teacher following. So these are relationship-driven coaching and teacher-centered coaching are fine once in a while, but you can see how they can really skew a teacher's perception of coaching. If I'm in a teacher-centered coaching program, I might think, I don't need that. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. If I'm in a relationship-driven coaching school, I'll think, oh, that coach is nice and helpful, but I don't really need to do anything more with that person. And so our student-centered coaching band is closest to student learning. And I want to emphasize something we just talked about, which is student evidence is a key driver for us. So we help teachers evaluate and reflect on their practice and on student learning through that use of student evidence. And that propels learning forward. So we really want to stay as close to that student learning center of this bullseye as possible. Though we can visit those outer rings, we want to focus on students as much as we can. And the way we do that is using our 7 core practices. And the first core practice gets its structure, and that's just the idea of a coaching cycle as a way to do continuous work. And that's going to be the focus for our next session. So I won't go too far into that now, but just know it is a very foundational practice for student-centered coaching to utilize coaching cycles. Within coaching cycles, then, core practice 2 is the idea of what kind of goals do we coach. So within a coaching cycle, we're going to coach standards-based goals, and then we're going to unpack those, core practice 3, into learning targets so that we have a clear success criteria and so that we can push towards teacher clarity. We're going to co-plan and co-teach continuously through the coaching cycle, which could be 4 to 6 weeks. And we're going to be in the classroom a lot, and we're going to be planning any lessons that we plan to co-teach. And this is where we really can coach into instructional decision-making. It's where we can really get on the same page, so when we're in the room, everybody can be equal partners in the lesson. Core practice 6 then is measuring the impact on student and teacher learning. That's also going to be the focus of one of our sessions and one of the chapters in the book. And then last but not least, we really want to always have a partnership with the school leader, and that truly is the X factor for us. We're finding that we can have really highly skilled coaches out in schools. Without that principal-coach partnership, it may all fall apart very, very reasonably because the coach won't be led and the teachers won't be led in how to engage in coaching, and there may not be a coherent model just because of that lack of partnership between the principal and coach. We did a recent impact study through a third party, and we took 87 coaching cycles and measured them throughout the state of Iowa, and we measured 3 different things. We measured student growth, so how'd that growth happen across that 4 to 6 week long coaching cycle. We also measured how instructional practice changed and was supported and improved. And then we also looked at how the coaching practice, what the coaching practices were. So it's kind of fun to look at this data because it's pretty common. This is sort of what we tend to see in our coaching practice is high levels of proficiency at the end of the coaching cycle. So this is, remember, it's proficiency on a standards-based goal. So we're talking about kids doing the appropriate work for their grade level and getting to 73% proficiency across a class of students. So that means that there's a few kids that we still have to worry about and think about and plan for, but it means most students in this class attained mastery of the standards that were being taught and coached. Here you also see a lot of amazing instructional practices coming to life. And this should be varied because we don't dictate what practices coaches and teachers work on. This comes from the district or from whatever is prioritized by the school. And so, for example, you see integrating technology as a kind of a lower score because it's towards the bottom, but that's just because that might not have been the emphasis in some of the schools that we measured in. So we're really happy that such great practices top the list, that formative assessments as a method for planning is huge. That's so ingrained in our coaching model that we would expect to see that as a highly established practice. differentiating instruction, modeling for students, delivering focused lessons, conferring, student self-assessment. I'd love to see that one a little longer because that's such a powerful move. Same as structures for student discourse. But again, the coach and teachers in these situations decided for themselves based on what they were, their school was focused on, which practices they wanted to go after. And these were measured by teacher reporting and also coach reporting. So you had two different eyes on, what was actually implemented in the classroom. In some cases, the principal was even a part of that. And then the coaching practices that were used are the things that we do. And so really what I would have wondered about, honestly, is as you look at these coaching practices, you see these are really our core practices: collaborating to set goals, co-teaching, creating learning targets. If these had been too low in the coaching practices, if these weren't what the coaches were doing, then I would probably say they weren't using the student-centered coaching model. But these are examples of a lot of the practices that we use. We'll talk more in our evaluating our impact session on how to collect data like this, because this is something any coach can do. But I just thought it would be fun to share some of the data today as well. So we really want to kind of think about then, oh, wow, this is a little bit different to think about coaching in this way. It's not necessarily the same exact process or model that maybe teachers are used to. Again, teachers are pretty used to relationship-driven coaching and teacher-centered coaching. And so it's going to be important to really message this and make sure the whole school understands. This messaging is ideally going to be conveyed by the principal and coach together. And it really has to be honest and authentic and real. And when we say it, we have to mean it. And the first is just that coaching is for everyone. We can't think of coaching as just being for certain people. That gets back to the fixing teachers approach, and it's just not healthy, and it just isolates people. Doesn't create vulnerability or risk-taking, which is our second one, because it feels like teachers are being targeted. You heard a video in this session from a coach explaining how different teachers are responding to student-centered coaching because they trust it because it's about their kids. And so we have to be a community of learners who take risks together. The coach can't be an expert. The coach can't walk in and say, I've got this all, I'm just gonna boss everybody around. The coach has to take risks, the teachers take risks, the principal takes risks. We're always learning. Then also just the idea that we don't evaluate or judge teachers. A coach has to be very careful to turn that barometer in their brain off that says, ooh, that was good or that was bad, and instead look at the progression of learning and look at the growth that's happening with the adults and not look at whether they're good or bad teachers. Being binary like that doesn't really give teachers the chance to be on that learning progression that they need to be on. And we got to celebrate the heck out of the growth they're making as well. And then last but not least, the process has to some degree, be driven by ownership and choice by teachers. So teachers need to be able to lean into this work and make some decisions about how to engage, what to focus on, who to work with. And all of these things really can create authenticity. And I guess I would say authentic engagement for teachers simply because they own the process. It's not being done to them, it's being done with them. And from Daniel Pink's work on motivating and engaging adults, we know how important that is. So the next little assignment within this session is to pull up your student-centered coaching journal and make your first entry. And the first entry for session 1 is to create 5 to 6 belief statements that sum up your thoughts about coaching. These could be things that you use later to communicate with your staff about really your dreams and your aspirations for coaching, or they could just be something you kind of keep close to your heart. But the process of writing them down and articulating those belief statements is a really important place to start. So hopefully you can make yourself a cup of tea and settle in and take a little time to reflect in this way. Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to reading your belief statements, and we'll see you soon.